This is the Nuphy Kick75, and it's a new keyboard that solves a huge problem. Behind the fun retro design and the budget price tag of $89, this keyboard solves a problem that's been a plague in the keyboard space for years now. It all started with this cool, albeit sort of useless idea that Nuphy had. They wanted a keyboard that could be swapped between high and low profile. So basically, you can change it from being normal height to a thinner design and vice versa. However, in the pursuit of this hybrid design, they accidentally fixed one of the biggest problems with low profile keyboards. I've been testing this keyboard for 2.5 weeks, and this board, it's got a lot going on. If you're new here, hi, I'm Betty, and this isn't my first rodeo. I've tested hundreds of keyboards. However, I will say, nothing quite like this one. It's currently on pre-order, and it was sent to me as an early test unit, but Nuphy did not pay me to make this video. So what problem does this keyboard solve? Well, to explain, we need to go back a bit. When mechanical keyboards were first designed, or specifically the switches inside them, they were made by a company called Cherry. They engineered the actual design of the mechanical switch we all know and love. But after a while, Cherry weren't the only people who could use that design anymore, and hundreds of switches from other companies flooded the market with the exact same switch design. While it's not so great for Cherry, it did have a huge benefit to everyone else. We got a lot more options. We got different feels, colors, price points, and even more importantly, all of the switches were universal or interchangeable between different keyboards from different brands. So you could take a switch from one keyboard and you know it would fit into another one. But then Cherry came up with a new switch design with a thinner profile called low profile switches. And this was big. It was an innovation at the time. You get the mechanical feel, but it was thin. And for some reason, it was designed with a different shape. But this decision by Cherry created a problem. When other companies started doing low profile switches, they opted for their own proprietary design. And as time went on, we got a bunch of different switches, all with different shapes. They were all thin, but they didn't work together. So if you have a thin keyboard and you don't like the feel or sound of it, you're basically out of luck because you might not be able to find other options that fit your board. Or if one of your switches were to break a few years later and the product is discontinued, it may be impossible to even buy that switch again. So what we've been missing is a universal design for low profile switches. Until now, sort of. You see, this keyboard, the Kick75, in order to be convertible, had to be designed with switches that would fit the same PCB, with the exact same shape. But what makes this such a big deal is that they use the original Cherry switch design. So this has compatibility with almost every normal switch on the market. And what's crazy is that a small company like Nuphy was able to do it before Cherry or anyone else. While this is huge, it's not really that useful until we can get other companies to adopt the same switch design, which might be an uphill battle. But I feel like Nuphy has set a new standard for what a universal low profile switch should be. If other companies jump on board, this could be a huge win, with more customization and long-term repairability than ever. So while it fixes a major problem, is the keyboard actually any good? And how hard is it to convert the board from low to high profile? So the keyboard itself looks pretty unique. It's a retro design, but a more colorful retro instead of the boring retro like the beige retro or the red and gray retro that's more common in other boards like 8-bit do. It has more of a Game Boy Color vibe, and apparently it's not designed after a video game or even a console. It's designed off of shoes, specifically Air Force Ones, but I couldn't find the pair that they based it off of. So my guess is that they took colors from a variety of their most popular shoes. And you can see that with the multicolored keycaps. They're all the same shape with a PBT material to keep off grease and fingerprints, and the font is clean. There's no errors on the text, and the colors remind me of the Google logo. You've got green, yellow, blue, and red. And while I think the design is pretty cool, it's definitely not for everyone. And after a while, I might get sick of looking at it. You have a knob on the top right. It's plus shaped, like a health pack, instead of a normal round knob. And this thing is pretty nice. It's tactile, it's fun to use. However, it can fall off pretty easily. It takes little force for this thing to pop right off. You also have a yellow toggle for Mac and Windows and another for wireless connectivity. It can connect with a dongle or with Bluetooth. The connectivity speeds are pretty fast at everything at 1000 Hertz or 1 millisecond delay, making it pretty good for gaming, except for Bluetooth, which is a lot slower. You even have a magnetic dongle storage here, so you won't won't lose your dongle, but the magnet's not very strong, so it could fall off pretty easily. This keyboard just has a ton of small bits that can fall off and get lost. If you put it in a backpack, I feel like all the pieces would just be swimming around in your bag. Like this gray piece on the side that fell off. I actually lost it. I don't have it anymore. And this rubber piece just comes right off, and it will definitely fall off in a backpack. So what's cool is that they're gonna open source this design where the bits attach. So you can design your own parts here and 3D print them and customize it to your own liking. You also get Kick75 on the back with one extra typing angle, and you can see the rib design and a cool graphic. It has some elements of Mario and Pokemon and something else, and they added a lot of fun details here. So inside the box, you have the keyboard itself, but you also get a bunch of extra goodies too. They sent over the low to high conversion kit as well. We'll see what it's like converting it later on in the video. So you get the guide, a new top plate, 2 new pieces of plate foam, and the high profile board. In the main box, you get the cable, and you really want to use this cable and not a different one, and I'll explain more why later. You get a keycap and switch puller combo, which you're going to need if you want to convert the keyboard later on, and you also get a few extra keycaps for switching between Mac and Windows, and you get a screwdriver with 2 different bits. How convenient. But how does this thing sound? This is what most people really care about, right? Since it has 2 configurations, it depends on which one you go with and what switches you put in it. One thing that's really cool about this keyboard is that it comes with 4 switch options, one of which is a silent switch. So if you want a silent low profile keyboard, this is one of the only boards that come with it pre-installed, and at only $89, it's a steal for you silent lovers out there. And the silent switch is called the blush switch. I got the brown in mine, which is a tactile switch, and mine had a pretty subtle bump, almost like a linear switch, similar to Cherry MX Brown's. Since I didn't get the blush switch, I can't tell you what it sounds like, although they do have a sound test of it, and I'll link that down below. They also have the red and silver option, which are both linear. On the sales page, it calls it sliver, but I'm pretty sure that's a typo. So the silver switch is slightly shorter and is for gamers who want a slightly faster response time. So to convert it between low and high, you need a little bit of elbow grease, and it may not be all that practical. For starters, to go from low to high, you need to buy the conversion kit for $19. So you're spending a little bit extra there, but there are more hidden costs along the way too, because on top of that 19, you need to buy a set of mechanical switches and maybe even more stuff too. I had a set of Gateron Oil Kings laying around, so I used those. But if you're not a keyboard YouTuber who hoards a bunch of supplies, you have to buy these separately, and that adds $40 to $50 to the price. Plus, if you reuse the low profile keycaps like I did, you'll run into an issue where the keycaps have these gaps on the side, so you probably want another set of keycaps too. But if you want to do this, the entire process is actually pretty fun. They have a guide that makes it feel like Lego. It's nice, it's fun. I feel like the instructions could have been a little bit more fleshed out, but overall, it was fun. Instead of a headache, well, except for one part. So to convert it, you need to take all the screws out on the back and pop the top plate. Luckily, Nuphy gives you a nice little screwdriver. Then you pull off all the switches and keycaps. Basically, you take the whole thing apart, and you gotta pull off the ribbon cables, and there's 4 of them. They're a headache later. So then you need to remove the stabilizers from the PCB to the plate, and you can see all the components. There's 2 layers of plate foam, 2 layers of foam underneath everything. You can see the battery in the bottom, which is 2500 milliampere hours if you get the Nuphy IO version, or 4000 if you get the QMK version. I'm not sure why they offer 2 options. That's pretty weird, but I personally love the Nuphy IO software, and the board is cheaper, so I would go for that one, unless you really love QMK. Although at the time of using it, I couldn't connect to Nuphy IO because it's an early unit, but I've used it in the past for previous keyboards like the Halo 65 HE, and I like it. It's easy, it's intuitive, plus you don't need to download it. It's open on Chrome or whatever browser you do use. Although I do want to mention, Nuphy has had problems with their batteries in the past if you charge this keyboard with the wrong cable. Spicy pillows, and not fun. Now the fun part is figuring out how to get these cables back in. I wish they made these a hair or quadruple hair longer, because this was frustrating. The entire process took about 45 minutes, and with all the extra stuff you need to buy, it probably makes sense to just buy a second board in a high profile design instead of one that converts. But how does it feel and sound? When it comes to typing feel, I definitely prefer the thicker version. It feels more satisfying and it sounds better too. The low profile version also sounds pretty good, but these Oil Kings just have a better bottom out. Now I would describe the typing sound as stocky, like knocking on wood, which you'll hear in the sound test. Overall, the Kick75 fixes a huge problem, and at $89, if you like the look and sound, it's a great option. And check out this video on my other favorite low-profile keyboards. Bye!